Breaking news in the SportsCenter, the 49ers wasting no time in their offseason, getting their superstar tight end on the books for the foreseeable future. San Francisco locking up six-time Pro Bowler George Kittle in a deal. It is a 4-year extension worth over $76 million, including $40 million of that guaranteed. Kittle has played his entire career in San Francisco after being drafted in the 5th round in 2017. As promised, Peter Schrager here to break all things down. We had a bunch of different questions scripted for you, and then we get the breaking news 10 minutes ago. That's show business, baby. So, Peter, what is your reaction to this extension?
Well, it keeps George Kittle as a 49er, as he should be. Back in 2020, 5 years ago, they had a long, arduous contract negotiation that ended up with having Kittle being the highest paid tight end in the league. That was in 2020. I remember it because I remember speaking with George the day after, and I said, how'd you celebrate? And he said, well, we had some Panda Express and wine in my apartment last night. I said, that's George Kittle for you. Yeah. 5 years later, this was going down that road again, where it was getting in the public a little bit that Kittle wasn't thrilled with his deal. It was up. Well, they take care of him. And now the question is, if you're keeping this thing going and the consistency, what do we do with Fred Warner? What do we do with Brock Purdy? The Niners, they're not saying their window is closed just yet. They're keeping it open, and it's a lot of the guys that were there for that whole run that took them to 2 Super Bowl appearances and all those NFC Championship games.
Because Debo is now in D.C., and you're looking at Kittle, 31 years old, still led the 49ers in receiving yards and touchdowns and catches. All right, let's run the 2-minute drill. Here we go. 128 days until opening night. Draft is over. Free agency, they're done, barring any unexpected chaos. So what storylines, Schrags, should we be watching for right now?
All right, here are just 4 stories that I would keep an eye on over the next several months. First is Aaron Rodgers' watch, and I can call it Aaron Rodgers' watch 2025. We got that Jets logo there. He's currently on the market. Who wants him? Well, the Steelers seem to be the team, yet is he actually going to play? Because you saw him on McAfee. He said, I've got some personal things to deal with.
Yep.
I'll tell you this. He told the Giants and the Steelers straight up, I have no timetable. If you want to move on, you can move on. The Giants, they opted to pivot. They went with Russell Wilson and of course, Jameis Winston, and now a rookie. Steelers, Will Howard's the only new quarterback they added. He's a 6th-round pick. 2, we got the schedule release, May 14th. It's a couple Wednesdays from now. And I want to see who the Eagles open up with. This, to me, is an interesting one. The NFL usually will pit the teams that they think are going to be relevant at the end of the season. The Eagles schedule some of the teams that they could play at home. Well, the Rams, the Lions, the Bears, and how about the Raiders? Some interesting teams that they could possibly do. And, of course, the entire NFC East is a possibility. Who deserves that prime billing of that Thursday night game? My third one's an interesting one. James Cook. You're like, James Cook? Yeah, we know. Josh Allen's the MVP. A lot of running backs got paid this offseason, including Saquon getting a renegotiated deal that will make him the highest paid running back in the league. James Cook was unbelievable last year. He's entering the final year of his contract. His agent and him have publicly said they want more than $15 million. The Bills have scoffed at that number. James Cook is an amazing player. Awesome, and was huge in that AFC Championship game. They need him. Let's see what they can do. The last one is this. I go Shador, but it's really the Browns quarterback room. Like, I don't know if they can do Hard Knocks because of all the rules, but I would love to just have a camera on all of these names. Now, look, Deshaun Watson, he's going to be paid $46 million to not play. Must be nice. Then you got Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, Dylan Gabriel, who was drafted before Shador in the 3rd round, and then Shador Sanders. I'm curious, how does it work out in minicamp? How does it work out in training camp? And then when we get to week 1 with the Cleveland Browns, who is under center?
And that's your 2 minutes. Peter Schrager, a professional, breaking things down this morning on SportsCenter. Schrags, fantastic to see you, man. Thanks.
We're joined now by our senior NFL insider, Adam Schefter. I mean, listen, Shador was drafted 2 days ago, and still all anybody wants to know, Shefty, is why. What are you hearing about why he slid to the 5th round?
I think it's a confluence of factors, Elle, all working together all at one time. You're talking about a player who is a good prospect, not an elite prospect in the eyes of National Football League front office executives. You're talking about not a ton of teams needing quarterbacks, and the teams that needing quarterbacks preferring other quarterbacks like Jackson Dart and Tyler Shuck and even Dylan Gabriel. So you had teams that filled their quarterback need. You had other teams that weren't looking for a quarterback, and you had a player, by all accounts, talking to front offices that basically said that it was not a great interview process for Shedeur Sanders. It all conspired together to create a situation where we saw him fall to pick number 144. But the truth of the matter is, it really doesn't matter. Because now Shedeur Sanders gets his chance. Now he gets to go to the Cleveland Browns. Now he gets to show every NFL team, including the Browns, what they missed out on early in the draft. And if he performs in the legendary way, in the word that he likes to use, then all of this will be made to look front offices and coaching staffs look foolish. He gets his say now. Let's see what he can do with it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you don't want to go in the 5th round, but right now the Browns quarterback room is the island of misfit toys. There's very much a path for him to start. We're going to talk with Jason McCourty coming up about that. A team that a lot of people thought might make a go at Shedeur Sanders is, of course, the Steelers. They instead, in the 6th round, picked Ohio State quarterback Will Howard. What does that mean about Aaron Rodgers' future there in Pittsburgh?
I think they believe and are quietly confident that Aaron Rodgers eventually will come around and sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Of course, it's late April. He hasn't done that yet, but if you listen to the Steelers owner, Art Rooney, this weekend, he sounded a tone of optimism and confidence that eventually Aaron Rodgers will wind up in the Steel City with the Steelers. That is the expectation. Aaron Rodgers himself has not said what he's ready to or not to do just yet, but the Steelers are operating like they are confident that Aaron Rodgers will be in the fold. They talked about adding a couple more quarterbacks to go along with Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson. One came this weekend, Will Howard. Now they wait for the other in Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, there's also another veteran quarterback whose future is really up in the air, and I'm talking about Falcons backup Kirk Cousins. What's the latest that you're hearing about him?
Well, to me, this would be, in the eyes of people across the league, the backup plan in Pittsburgh if Aaron Rodgers decided not to come back to the Steelers. Because then Kirk Cousins would be a veteran quarterback that would have some appeal and draw some interest from some teams. Right now, we saw all these teams fill their quarterback needs. We saw the Cleveland Browns, who really couldn't have afforded to trade for Kirk Cousins anyway, draft 2 quarterbacks, Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel. We saw the Minnesota Vikings trade with Seattle for quarterback Sam Howell. Really, the only team right now that has a pressing quarterback need is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Pittsburgh Steelers are waiting for Aaron Rodgers. But if Aaron Rodgers doesn't come through and decides he doesn't want to play, then I would think Kirk Cousins would figure to be on the Steelers' list of potential replacements. And if Aaron Rodgers goes to Pittsburgh, what that would mean to Kirk Cousins would be he might have to wait for another team to suffer some type of setback at the quarterback position, an injury, just to see what happens. Because right now, there's a real possibility he could be going to camp with the Falcons.
Yeah, I mean, he tied for his most in a career in interceptions with 16 last season. Had a really good start to the season, but certainly went downhill from there. Adam Schefter always bringing it to us here on